Right, you, in the break, you tell me a bit about how you came to yourself life and how quiet you were.
Yes.
Okay, we took a break and you were telling me about how different you were now from when you were young, and telling me how shy and quiet you were when you were young.
Yes, because we didn't have the money to widen our horizons, to travel or to go places. We had a wonderfly happy childhood, and many people envy us when we talk about it. But because I was really like a country bumpkin, I was always a very quiet little girl, and had I perhaps been able to assert myself a little more, I may have bettered myself during my working life. But I was always nervous. The worst thing that could happen to you in those days, and it did happen, was that you were given the sack, which is redundant. And I was quite like that. My husband is a very quiet man, and after our children were born, this is the time when I began to come into my own, because when the children were old enough to go to Hebrew classes, we were living in Muswell Hill at the time. They formed a parents' association and invited me to be the secretary, as I had secretarial knowledge. And we were a very close, quite a large committee. And when our children, after my son's bar mitzvah, and the children stopped going to Hebrew classes, I gave my job as secretary of the PA over to somebody else, and I joined the Ladies' Guild of the shul, and I worked with them right up to the time we left, which was, Jenny was born in 1950, and it might have been 65, say for about 20 years. And I worked very hard, and I got to know a lot of people. Our synagogue was rebuilt in 1965. Yes, I was then about 50 years of age. And it was suggested by the rabbi's wife that we start a friendship club for the over 60s. And I've been working there for 32 years. First as a secretary, then as joint chairman, and for the last 22 years as chairman, organiser, holidays organiser, programmes organiser, in charge of catering. And I have met some wonderful people.
Well, we're going to go into that later.
Okay.
Now I want to go back to when you were a secretary.
Yes.
Back to the conditions of work at the shipping office.
Oh, it was a big old-fashioned building. I don't think it's there anymore. I remember.
This was mid to late 30s, wasn't it?
Yes, mid to late 30s. We were on the second or third floor, and the lift, you wouldn't believe this, there was a young boy operating the lift. It wasn't an electrical lift, it must have been a hydraulic system, because when you got into the lift, he pulled a rope, and that would set the system going. And I didn't like it. It was a very big, old-fashioned, cold, drafty place. And the manager at the branch was a horrible, bad-tempered man, but the man I worked for was really, really very nice. And in those days, a lot of companies were not allowed to employ married women. There was I getting, oh yes, because there was unemployment and they wanted the men to have work. And there was I getting married in May 1940 and not allowed to let them know that I'm married. I married on the Sunday, and it was a bank holiday, Sunday. And so we had 2 days honeymoon, Sunday and Monday, and then we went back to work. And I had to remember to take my wedding ring off on the bus going to work. And we married on the weekend of the fall of France during the war.
Right, can we go back to that?
Yes.
When did you meet your husband?
At the swimming bath.
Right.
After we came out of the water towards the evening, there was a large area with a table tennis table, and when I was a girl living in Bethnal Green, I belonged to the Bethnal Green Girls Club, and I was the table tennis champion, and I used to go in for competitions for them. And so we were playing table. There were these boys, a group of 4 or 5 boys round playing, and we said, "Can we join in?" And they said yes, and that's how it happened.
So where was he from?
He was from Aldgate.
And his name?
Greenbone the name was. Green Moss. And people say, "Moss Green, that's a funny name." But anyway, bless him, he was 88 in December. He works Wednesday morning and Thursday morning at the local Ravenswood charity shop. It gets him out, and it's good for him, and it's good for me. Yeah.
So you met playing table tennis?
Yes.
And did he ask you out?
Then the boys went in to get dressed, and one of the boys came out before all the others, and he said, "Can I see you home?" And I was, got a boy to see me home. I said yes. And I never saw but we had discussed that they were going to Belgium at the same week as we were going to Belgium on a holiday.
Oh, you were going on holiday?
Oh, we were going on, well, I was working then, so there you are. And I was going with my friend, and this group of boys were going, and they were in...
Why Belgium?
It was the first time I had ever been abroad. I'd been to Cliftonville. The first year I went to work, I stayed at a boarding house with my friends in Cliftonville. I'd never been abroad, and my friend Shirley said, "Let's go to Belgium for a holiday." And I said, "Oh, yes." And her father came to see my mother and said that I am leading his daughter astray. It was her suggestion. Anyway, they were going to Ostend, and we were going to Blankenberg, which was a little bit further on, but in those days you went across on the boat. And I didn't think any more about it, and coming back on the boat there were those boys, you see, on the same boat. And so my husband said, "You know, I wanted to take you home that day, and you've gone with one of my friends." And anyway, this is how we got together, and this was in 1938. 1938, August 1938, yes. Right. And he started to take me out.
Where did you go?
And we used to go to the Empire, Leicester Square, to the cinema for 2 shillings and sixpence, half a crown, which would today be 10 pence.
Can you remember any films that you did?
Oh yes, we saw Gone with the Wind. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I can't remember. I mean, at that time it was the big, lavish American musicals, Broadway Melody and things like that.
You went out together into the West End?
We went together to the West End, yes.
Did you ever have time alone together at
home? Sometimes, not very much, because there was always somebody around. And we used to go to the corner, and we used to go to the cinema, and then we used to go to Lyons Corner House at Tottenham Court Road, opposite the Dominion, and we used to always order the same thing, an egg mayonnaise. He'd love egg mayonnaise, and for half a crown, so he'd be spending like 10 shillings on an evening, and he told me afterwards that was almost his whole week's pocket money.
What did he do?
He was a ladies' tailor, and his father had a workshop at the top of the house. So everybody in those days had workshops at the top of the house. And his father was a very, very, very sick man, and he had 4 sisters at home. And he went into work with his father, as many boys did in those days. And we were going out, and it was coming to my birthday the following May, and he said to me, "What would you like for your birthday?" And I said, "I'd like a ring." He said, "What sort of ring?" I said, "Well, I'd like a ring for this finger." And I still have the original receipt of the engagement ring. Came from a shop called Feldman's, not a shop, it was a friend of the family, in the Stratton ground off Victoria Street, and it's £25. engaged, single diamond engagement ring. And that was in the May, and we married the following May, and the war was already started.
So you married in 1940?
Yes, May 1940, and we've celebrated our golden wedding. We've been married, thank God, 57 years, coming up to 58.
So you got war broke out. Did you know much about what was going on in Europe?
Not a lot. We knew what was happening at home because we were stuck in air raid shelters every night, hoping and praying that we were not going to be the next victims.
Tell me about your experience with the Blitz.
It was terrible every night, and neighbours from across the road used to come in, and we used to spend the night in our cellar, which was really the coal cellar. We used to have the coal delivered through a chute just outside the front door, and it was a boarded up section, and we put boards across the top, and we used to sleep down there.
Your new married home?
Yes.
Where were you living in your first home?
We stayed with my parents, didn't we?
Right.
Because we wouldn't go and buy furniture and that when the boss was falling every night. And then my husband went into the army, and we got as far as 1943, and he came home on leave, and the bombing had stopped, and we thought, well, now is the time to look for a place to live, because when the war is over, we thought, now once the bombing stopped, the war must be nearly over, because it would be difficult to find accommodation. So we had cousins living in Crouch End, Hornsey, and we thought we'd look in that direction. And we went a little bit further on to Muswell Hill, and we bought. My sister had been sharing a home with my parents before the war, which, although she was married with a small child, she had her own bedroom and living room. And so she was evacuated because her husband he was never a naturalised citizen, he was Austrian, and he was interned and then released and sent to work in an aircraft factory in Portsmouth.
Where was he interned?
The Isle of Man. And she went to live in Chichester. And her home was where we were living, her furniture. And I said to my husband, we must go house hunting, and it's got to be enough for, 2 flats or 2 separate lots of accommodation. And we found this lovely old Edwardian house in Muswell Hill, a 10-roomed house. It was very roomy, very large rooms, and we moved there, and she had a 4-room flat on the first floor, and we took my mother with us because she was so unhappy, and I thought, if we're going to leave her here, and so she left my father, and she came and she lived with us till the day she died, 18 years, and she was such a comfort to us. And then the flying bomb started, and I used to go to work in the morning, and she was left in this house all on her own flying bomb. She used to shop, she used to cook, she used to clean.
You're still working?
Yes.
For the shipping company?
I must have been. Was I? No, wait a minute. Yes, I was, because it was during the war. Yes. Right,
and so the father is left behind in
Stoke-Newington, yes. Well, he was always threatening to leave us. He used to say, I don't need you, I'm going to leave you one day. So we thought, right, if he doesn't want us, we'll go. And we bought this 10-roomed house for £1,150, and we paid a monthly mortgage of £6.8 8. I was working, and I had my husband's allowance, and my mother had my brother, who was single, made her an allowance. You could do that.
Did he live with you, your brother?
When he came out of the army, yes. And he married soon after, yeah. And my mother lived with us until she died in 1960. And our children, and did you remember Grandma? Of course we remember Grandma, because, and she was, this was the best time of her life, because in due time we were notified that my father had passed away, and so she got a widow's pension, so she was a little bit independent. And my husband, being in the ladies' tailoring trade, he used to make her suits or bring home material, and the dressmaker would make her something. And she'd go to the hairdresser every week to have her hair done. And she joined a friendship club in Highgate, and she made some lovely friends.
So your husband
came out of the army.
And was it first time he was in the army?
We moved. He came home on leave when we moved.
And where was he overseas?
He was in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
He was in Ireland. He was in the medical corps. He was in Ireland, and he got leave. We arranged the moving for when his leave was due.
And where was your brother posted?
Oh my goodness! He volunteered. He couldn't wait to be called. He volunteered, and he was sent up to Catterick, which is a very big army base. And from there, he was sent to Iceland. And he was in Iceland for about 2 years. And by that time, the Allies were moving forward in Europe and North Africa. And he was here for a few weeks, and from the cold of Iceland, they sent him to Algeria, North Africa.
Did you see a lot of fighting?
Yes, he moved on with the... he wasn't actually in the fighting lines, he was a cook. And he was in the catering corps. But he moved on, and one day my mother said to me, "Do you know, I had a dream, something is wrong with Harry. Something's wrong." She couldn't read his letters. I used to read the letters, so she didn't know if it was his writing or somebody else's writing. I had a dream, and he was lying in bed with his face to the wall, and he wouldn't turn around to talk to me, and I think something is wrong. I took no notice. And then I got a letter, an air letter, not in his writing. He must have dictated it to somebody, and he had a very bad bout of malaria. And I didn't tell her. I read the letter as it came because he had dictated it. And then he started writing again, and we told her a long time afterwards, and she said, "I knew that something was wrong." She was very special, was our mother, and we keep talking about her all the time because she was so very special. And we are what we are because of her. See, in some families the father has an influence, but it wasn't like that with us. Now what would you like to know?
Well, so you're living in Muswell Hill.
Yes.
With your sister.
She had the first floor flat.
First floor.
Mm.
Was her husband still in the Isle of Wight?
No. When he was released from the Isle of Man, he was working in Portsmouth, and he found her lodgings in Chichester, which was just a short train ride away, and he would go to work every day. And after the war, by which time she'd had another a daughter, she has a son and a daughter with 9 years between them, and they came back, because when we moved, we took their furniture with us and put it in their first floor flat. And and my mother was living with us, and then I had 2 children, and then I thought, well, when they come back from Chichester after a little while, they'll find a place of their own. But my brother-in-law was not, my late brother-in-law was not a very adventurous type, and he thought, well, he's living in a rented flat, he's got a roof over his head, and that would do. So then we had 2 little bedrooms at the top of the house, which were our children's bedrooms, but in the beginning they both slept in one room, and my mother had the other room, but when my mother became very sick, she couldn't climb 2 flights of stairs, and so we brought her bed down, and it was in our lounge. And her friends from the club used to come and visit her and chat, and it was nice. She had lovely friends.
So you were very close to your mother. Were you close to your sister?
Yes, we were, but we were entirely different personalities. I always, maybe because we've lived different lives and we've married different types of men, my husband left the tailoring in due course because it was very hard. He didn't mind the hard work, but years ago in the little tailoring workshops, there was a busy season and a slack season, and it was very hard to make a living. And a friend of ours, a very good friend, who was also a neighbour, said, you know, there's a very nice little newsagent shop up for sale round the corner. And our friend, another friend, was the estate agent who was dealing with it, and this friend of ours said, come round and have a chat with the man. Well, to cut a long story short, we bought this newsagent shop.
When was this?
This was in it was the year before Gordon's commencement, 46, 58,
Right.
1958.
Right. So let's go back. So you're still at the shipping office?
No,
No.
when my husband came out of the army, I was home,
Right.
yes.
So you came out of the army, you
Yes.
left work, and you had children.
Mm.
So when were your children born?
My son, I had been very, very ill during the war, and I was warned not to start a family yet, and I had to wait. And Gordon was born in 1946, and then Jenny was born in 1950. 3.5 years between them. And although I say it myself, they are very, very nice young folk. Real credit to us, and not made wealthy or anything like that, but they are good children. My husband and I like to feel independent, and while we can be, we are. Of course, as you get older, you are not quite so, but we don't live in their pockets, although they live very near. We don't live in their pockets, and we don't expect them to come. You've got to come every Friday night, or you've got to come and see us once a week, or we're in constant telephone contact, and we see them frequently, and we're a close family, and we have 5 lovely grandchildren, and it's another world away.
So can you tell me about London? What your impressions, your remembrances of London at the end of the war, the beginning of the 50s? What life was like then?
Well, it was very stark. Although the lights began to go up, food was rationed for a long, long time, and there were foods that were not rationed that were in short supply. But children born in between the 40s and 50s had never seen a banana in their lives, and certain other things. You know, what's this? We've never seen it or tasted it before. I think bread was about 4p halfpenny a loaf. That's less than 2 new pence. See, and people were unemployed, and men came back from the army, and in those days, those men should have had counselling, but it wasn't heard of. They came back from a life of communal living, and they came back home, and they had to find jobs, and they were living in a more enclosed environment. It must have been very hard for them.
Your husband came back, did he go back to tailoring?
Yes, because his father was running it. Although his father was a very sick man, his father was running the business, and so he got early release from the army on compassionate grounds, and he went back to the tailoring, yes. Yeah.
And how long did he stick with tailoring?
Well, he came out of the army in 45, when the war finished, 45, and we went into the shop in
Late
50, 46, 59, 58, yeah, 58, yes.
So a good 10 years or more.
Yes, he struggled on, and because his parents were sick, we had to maintain his father's home as well. You see, in underneath where the workshop was, in Christopher Court in Aldgate. You've heard of Lemon Street, Lehman Street they call it. And just off there, yes. Near the docks, near the London docks.
So do you have memories of bombs and
bullets? Yes.
Tell me about London at that time.
Oh, well, you didn't go out at night because the air raids were mainly at night. Although there were some during the day. I remember being on a bus going to work, and there was an air raid siren.
What did you do?
But Well, it was quiet. There was nothing happening, and I had to get off the tram to go to work. And I managed to get to the office, and there was nobody in the office because they'd all gone into a shelter. It was horrific. It really was. I mean, you'd be in the middle of eating your supper, and the sirens would go, and immediately you could hear the bombs falling, and you had to just leave everything and go into shelter.
You never left London?
I didn't know. I was in London right through the war. Mm.
Did you know anyone who was bombed out?
Well, there was a bomb fell right next door to us, but fortunately it didn't explode. But a man was in the bath and he was killed in his bath. But it didn't explode, otherwise we would have all been caught in it. I remember when we took shelter in Simpsons, just along the road, on the other side was a very big block of flats called Coronation Buildings. And there was a direct hit, and there was a shelter in the cellar, and the hits it hit the water mains, and people were drowned. Many, many, many people. It was the most horrendous night. Did I know anybody that was bombed out? Not completely. People were bombed out more than once. You just couldn't get away from it. I couldn't leave London. I had a mortgage to pay, and I had a job to hold down, and I had my mother to look after. So I couldn't.
Did you feel relatively safe in Muswell Hill?
Well, it wasn't the centre of London. It was not near the city or near the docks. But when we went to Muswell Hill, the bombing had finished. But then came the flying bombs, and they were everywhere, and you just couldn't avoid them. You just heard them, and then when the engine stopped, you knew they were going to fall, and you prayed that they were not going to fall where you were. And they didn't. Thank goodness, no. God was kind to us, and I think he's been kind to me all my life. I'm not complaining. I haven't got wealth, but we've got a lovely family, and we've got enough for our needs. And we have the good days and the bad days because we're getting older. Like everybody else, you have a good day and a bad day, and you hope that tomorrow will be a good day. Philosophical. That's me. Yes.
End of the war, rationing, two young kids.
Yeah.
In their early 50s.
Yes.
You're not working then, you give up work to bring up your children.
Yes. Yes.
Was that a decision that you wanted to?
I gave up work before the children were born, yes.
When you got married?
No, I was working when I was married.
Oh.
Yes, I gave up work. Actually, I gave up my office job and I went to help my father-in-law in his workshop. But there were little jobs I could do, not sewing jobs, but there were little things that I could do to help him. He was a very, very sick man. He'd had a brain tumour operation. And he was living in Amersham, and he used to travel up every day on the train to keep this business running for when his son came back. And I was helping him. When my husband came home, then I was able to stay home. And then my son was born about a year later. And so I had a baby and a home, and my mother was with us, and she continued to do cooking, and I did the shopping. And I used to think in those days, how do people bring up babies without their mother around to help them? But they do, don't they? Yeah.
So she was a great help to you.
She was wonderful, yes, she was indeed. Yeah.
And tell me about living in Muswell Hill.
Oh, that was lovely because that's when our social life started. Through this Parents Association, through the shul, we made lots of friends. And we used to arrange fundraising functions, and we used to have such a lot of fun. And
what shul?
Muswell Hill. It was newly built in 1965. And then, as I say, I worked with the Ladies Guild, and then I started to work with the Friendship Club, and this opened a new world to me. And this is Tuesday is my best day of the week. I work very, very, very hard, but I love every minute of it. And then, you wouldn't remember the Oxford and St George's was a settlement in the East End. Basil Baker started this settlement because they wanted to get the children off the streets. So they had this club, and eventually, about 16 or 17, 18 years ago, they moved from the East End and they went to Whetstone, and then they started a day centre for the elderly, and I volunteer there from the day it opened. I've been working there for 16 years on a Thursday. I also belong to the League of Jewish Women, and my husband belongs to Ajax, and he's a past chairman of Muswell Hill Ajax.
Vicki Green, Real Four. Okay, daily life in the early 50s, mid-50s.
Well, it consisted of bringing up my family, of cooking. No, my mother was cooking. Shopping, gardening. We had a garden and I loved gardening.
Washing nappies when they were young.
Washing nappies, yes. We had a cleaner used to come in, a lady, £0.50 an hour, 2 and 6pence an hour. She'd worked 3 hours for 7 shillings and 6pence. And then she became pregnant and she used to come with the baby in a pram, and he was a demon. And then she left and I had another cleaner after that. It was a big house. It needed a lot of looking after. We had big rooms, and the children's friends used to come. And then when the children got into their teens and they were on committees, because we had big rooms, they used to have committee meetings in our house, so I used to meet all the younger set.
So what school did they go to?
They went to, there was a school round the corner, which is actually right next door to the shul in Tetherdown. It was called, it's now called Fortismere. It was called, no, it's this new school that's built behind William Grimshaw in Crichton Avenue, a big new school. Originally they went to a little school round the corner from where we lived, which was, I can't remember the name of it. And then when they were 11 years old, they went to this William Grimshaw, which is now called Fortismere, is it called? Changed its name. Yeah.
So you've given up work, you're at home with the kids.
Yes.
They're growing up. What are their names again?
Our son's name is Gordon, and our daughter's name is Jenny.
And your husband, what's he doing?
Well, we retired. We had the shop for 18 years.
Why about this shop? So you bought
a newsagent, which was 7 days a week, but we didn't care. My husband said, look, I don't know anything about this business. I have to close the workshop because it's not paying. We're not making a living. We'll only go into this venture if you'll help me. Will you help me? So then I started work again.
Where was this newsagent?
In Fortis Green. You know the police station in Fortis Green? Just before the police station, yeah. There's a parade of a few little shops. And the man that owned it had been a publican. So in those days the pub was open 2 or 3 hours in the morning and then it opened in the evening. Today the pubs are open all day, I believe, I don't know. And this man was used to playing his game of golf in the afternoon, and so he didn't like being tied to a shop. And he had an Irish girl working for him who had been a barmaid in his pub. And he said to me, he said to my husband, if your wife would like to come in, I will teach her the business. And I worked for him without pay for about 6 weeks, but I was learning the business. And this Maureen, we asked her, and yes, she said she would stay on because she knew the customers, etc. And in the meantime, my husband took a job in another person's factory, and we had to go to the bank to get the money to pay for this business. And the bank manager said, I will loan you the money on condition that you don't draw any wages out for 3 months, I don't know. But my husband took this job, and so we were all right. And I was working in the shop with this man, and he'd toddle off to his game of golf in the afternoon. And it was a newspaper business where the evening papers would come in the afternoon, and people would come in for the evening papers. We used to do morning papers, we used to deliver papers, so we had to be up at very early in the morning, and it was 7 days a week. And we gradually shortened the working hours. He used to close at 8, we got it down to 6, because in those days, if you were open till 6 o'clock, it was a long day. And eventually the girl left and we got other staff, but it was very, very hard work. And really, my husband, he really worked hard. He used to get up early in the morning, and after lunch I used to go in, and the girl used to come in the afternoon, and he'd go home and have a sleep for an hour or two. But we never gave up our social life, and we used to visit friends in the evening, and he used to fall asleep there. And I used to say, and they'd say, leave him alone, he's tired, just let him have a sleep. And that's how it was. And then we decided my husband was 67 when we decided that we would give up, because I said, I used to think we'd go on working until the end, but I can see it's not a good idea. Let's retire and enjoy. So we sold the business, and eventually, 77 took another 9 years. We sold the house. And we got a very good price for the house. We bought it for £1,150. We sold it for 120,000, and we were able to come here. And we're very, very, very happy and contented here in Southgate. Yes.
So your children growing up.
Yes.
And you were at the newsagents, and then you stopped the newsagents. So what did you do?
He continued working. Yes, he was at that time 6. No, he didn't continue working. He retired. Yes, he did. He found himself a little job. He's not the sort of person, he gets very restless, he can't sit around. Found himself a job at a local shop, and he used to go to work 2 or 3 days a week, or half days, I can't remember. And I was quite happy. Children married. One of them married in...
Did they leave when they were young? Or?
No, in those days you lived at home till you married. 67, Gordon married in 69 and Jenny married in 71. Yeah, they were married when we left the house. And yes, we said, look, it's a big empty house, and the gardening was getting too much for me.
And your mother had died?
My mother died in 1960, yes. And my brother-in-law had died, and my sister's children had left home. One was married and one was in a flat with other girls, and there was 3 of us in the house, which was ridiculous. So she got a flat here, downstairs, a single-bedroom flat on the other side of the building, and we were flat hunting, and the estate agent phoned us and said, we've just got a new property coming, it's a 2-bedroom flat in the same block as your friend, sister. It's inflated. All our lives we've lived under the same roof. But anyway, since my committee work and all our other work, we have made so many friends. We have such a vast circle of friends, and this flat is used so much. Saturday night my brother comes, he's widowed, and my sister comes up, and there's usually 2 or 3 or 4 friends. And we now also have a speakers class. We have a very huge lounge, and we have a speakers class here every other Monday afternoon.
Tell me about all the various groups you're involved with.
Yes.
Anything to do with the synagogue first?
Yeah, the Friendship Club.
Right, do you go to synagogue regularly? Do you consider yourself religious?
I used to go every week, but I'm getting older, and I find the walk is difficult, although it isn't fun. My husband likes to go every week because it's something to do. I go every 2nd or 3rd week also.
Do you keep a kosher home?
Oh yes.
Always.
Oh yes. This is how we've grown up, and our children are the same, yes. And since we've been in Southgate, and because we go to the synagogue, we've made another lot of new friends. And this is a very Jewish area, and it's almost like when we lived in the East End as children, and we've got friends everywhere. It's wonderful.
So you have a friendship club?
Yes.
Which is connected to the synagogue?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that? And how you got involved?
Yes. When the synagogue was built, we were on very close terms with the rabbi and his wife. They're lovely people. And she said, I think as we've got this lovely new building with this beautiful hall, I think we should use it, and I think we should have a friendship club. The friendship club movement was founded in 1948, after the war, for the senior citizens. And we had a meeting amongst the Ladies' Guild, to which the rabbi's wife came, and the founder of the original Friendship Club movement came. They were based at Woburn House. And they decided that they would start this, and they got one of the ladies to volunteer to run it as a chairman, and they invited me to be the secretary, which I did. And we had a very good committee in those days. We had a welfare officer and a transport officer, because elderly people, some of them need transport. And we had catering officer. People have got older, some have emigrated, some have passed on. And then we started in the Friendship Club. After about 10 years, we started a luncheon club. Our chairman at that time felt that there was a need for elderly people to have a hot meal if they were coming to the club. You had to be a member of the club, and the League of Jewish Women ladies offered to do that side of it, and to this very day they do it, and they cook a hot 3-course meal, freshly cooked. Even the soup is freshly cooked, for £2. So the people that come to lunch come at 12 for lunch, and the other members come at 1, and we have afternoon programs. We've had some wonderful speakers and entertainers, and the lady that runs the luncheon celebrated her 75th birthday yesterday, and we had a party. She gave us a special luncheon and a special party, and she comes from a family of Yiddish theatre actors. Her parents were both Yiddish theatre players, and her son is now also in the acting profession. He's on the television, and so she invited 2 of the Yiddish theatre players, unfortunately it's no more, to lunch and tea yesterday. Does the name Selnika ring? Yeah. Anna Selnika came for tea, for lunch, and we sat together with another of the ladies. We had a most wonderful afternoon. We had a man came and he brings beautiful tapes, and I phoned him and said, Joe, we've got these 2 ladies coming, can you come up with a couple of, don't play, well, he doesn't play rubbish, but play good music, a little bit classical, and a couple of things that would appeal to these ladies. So he brought a tape, and then he puts these things together. Sophie Tucker singing My Yiddish Mama in English, and then he put onto it, she's singing it on a very, very, very old scratched record in Yiddish. And he said, I'm sorry it's so scratched, but my dear late mother used to play it so much, and she used to cry and I used to cry, but it's on tape, and she was a wonderful lady, Sophie Tucker. And he also brought a tape of Topol singing Fiddler on the Roof, singing traditions, and at the end he said, I've added to this a tape of Isaac Stern, violinist, famous violinist, playing Fiddler on the Roof. And he played a few classical records, beautiful voices, and it was lovely.
So can you tell me, so
Yeah.
you're involved in the friendship
Club, yes.
and what else? What else do you do?
Well, I work at the Henrika's House Day Centre on a Thursday.
What do you do there?
I do anything that's asked of me. I can collect the money at the door, I can answer the phone, I can serve the coffees in the morning, I can sit and talk to people and listen to their problems.
Do you enjoy?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I help serve the dinners and clear the tables and help with the washing up and whatever is needed. I've been there 16 years, so I can turn to anything, whatever.
Right, so
Yeah. And you know them all. It's a small day centre. We cater roughly 25 meals. And I know them all by name, and I know all about their families, and I know that they don't eat this or they don't like that, and we try and
look after
please them. Yes, yes.
And what else do you do in your life?
What else do we do? We have a good social life, and we go out quite a lot. Oh, and we belong to the Council of Christians and Jews.
Tell me about that, please.
That is a wonderful organisation. We got involved with our bachelor neighbour across the hall, and he takes us to the meetings if it's something special. And we've met some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And the CCJ were the ones that asked me to first do this talk. And the vicar was there from a local church. He's a big 6-footer with a mane of white, yellowish white hair. And when I finished, he came across and shook me by the hand. I thought my hand was going to fall off, and he said, I must tell you, I so enjoyed your talk. There was so much warmth in it, home life. That's CCJ, and
what do you do?
You listen to a speaker or whatever, and they have a lot of meetings in the theological college up the road, and I know the lecturers. I've got to know the lecturers, and they are organising a trip to Bet Shalom, which is just outside of Nottingham, which is a Holocaust museum run by a non-Jewish family, and we're going with them in March. There's a meeting.
What's the aim of the CCJ?
To make an understanding between Christians and Jews, and we've made some wonderful friends amongst the non-Jewish people. And one couple phoned me and said, we met your rabbi recently, and he said, why don't you come to one of our Sabbath morning services? And I said, and they said, can we go with you? So I said, all right, Michael, we'll meet you in the foyer. No, we'll wait in the street. I said, no, wait inside, it's warmer. No, we'll wait in the street. His wife is a lovely lady. They never had any children. She is a theatre sister at the Barnet Hospital. A lovely person. And he said to me, will you please... I said, you know, Michael, you will have to sit with Moss and Valerie will have to sit with me. Yes, he said, I know that. And I said, he said to me, can you tell me what portion of the law is read this week? I'm not so knowledgeable, but our shul issues a fortnightly magazine with all the fortnight's news, and it tells you what's the portion for the week. So he said, because I have a Chumash here, and Valerie and I can read it up and we'll know what it's all about. Okay, so I told him what it was, and we met and we went in, and when I started to read the portion of the law, I mean, I'm not so good at reading Hebrew. She opened her book and she was following it word by word. She could read Hebrew. And there was a Hebrew teacher, a very nice lady, sitting behind us, and she kept leaning over and saying, we do this because this and because this. And she seemed to know. And I said to Valerie, there's no Kiddush this week because there was no Simcha. But Moss and I would like you to come back and have Kiddush with us here. And we invited Len across the hall. My husband made Kiddush with the wine. And I'd already preset the table with herring and fish balls. And they talked here, they sat talking here for about 2 hours. And we talked about the olden days, how we lived in 2 rooms. And I said, everybody lived in 2 rooms in those days. And he said, we didn't. We lived in a 17-room house. I said, you must have been very rich. He said, well, it was the vicarage. My father was the vicar. So you see, this is the feeling of understanding.
Right, and you also mentioned to me that you've been involved with the Sternberg Centre.
Yes.
So what do you do there?
I was doing interviews. Sally Fiver is the most wonderful lady. She's disabled. She lived in the Fitzroy Tavern. Her grandfather was the owner of this pub, and every actor and every cab driver in London knows the Fitzroy Tavern.
Where is it?
It's in Charlotte Street, you know Charlotte Street. And I met Sally through League of Jewish Women. She was on the council. And
what do you do in the League of Jewish Women?
Well, we meet once a month with groups all over the country, and we work for Jews, Christians, Indians, Turks, Serbs, Croatians, Greeks.
What do you do?
Or any jobs we're asked to do. Sometimes we get a request from head office. Has somebody, a driver, can you take this disabled child to hospital for treatment or whatever? We also, the friendship clubs are under the auspices of the United Synagogue and the League of Jewish Women. We're under their umbrella. So a lot of the people that work on the committees, like at the day centre, are League women.
Can you give some examples of maybe things that you might have done for the League of Jewish Women?
Well, the League of Jewish Women, the day centre is run by the League of Jewish Women. It's nothing to do with Jewish care. It's manned by the League of Jewish Women, and they have day centres all over London, manned by the League. We used to be involved a lot with Ravenswood, part of Ravenswood, which was called the Haven Foundation. They had a home for brain damaged adults in Crouch End, and we used to go there and make them parties on Purim and Hanukkah, and they used to come, we used to invite them to our club parties. They're like grown-up children, but they're very lovable. We do all kinds of things. We visit the sick. We do all kinds of things. Whatever we're asked to do, we will do. For instance, if somebody dies and they've got nobody to the family, or a man we know died recently and suddenly, and his wife, 3 children all living abroad, and his wife was just, and the local league came in and they did all the shopping and they did all the necessary that in whichever way they could help. This is the work we do. We work for Jews and Christians and whatever, right? Yeah.
So you're very busy.
Meals on Wheels, that's a very big part of the job, Meals on Wheels.
Do you deliver Meals on Wheels?
I used to when we lived in Muswell Hill, but the day centre delivers 40 meals a day, so they have 4 drivers go out every day, all volunteers, nobody gets paid.
Do your family live near? Your children?
Yes, one daughter lives at Oakwood, which is only another train stop on, and our son lives at Cockfosters, which is another train stop on that way. And fortunately, I'm a driver. I drive, so.
And you both of them?
We don't live in each other's pockets. We talk constantly on the phone. The children come frequently.
How about your grandchildren?
Oh, they're lovely. They're lovely. They really are. Where are they? They're little
Lots of
pictures.
photos around the room of your grandchildren.
Yeah, I'm not going to get up because this will come out. But lots of children, and lots of the children, and there are lots in the lounge, which I can show you on the way out.
How many grandchildren do you have?
And my son has 2 sons and a daughter, and that granddaughter is presently in Australia for a year, working her way around Australia, and she's very go-ahead and she's got her feet on the ground. And she will be 21 in March. And my daughter has 2 daughters, and one of them spent 5 months touring Australia on holiday, and she's back. And the other one has just come back from a year working on a kibbutz in Israel. And that's it.
You have a very full life. Very
full indeed, yes. We go to functions, we've got a klezmer concert at our shul this Saturday night. And because we've got such a lot of friends, we're going to have an enormous table with 14 of us round the table. You know, they'll put a lot of tables together. And next Sunday we're going with to the local Ajax. We've got a Man Voice Choir concert. And At the end of the month, we're going to a function at Muswell Hill Shore where we still know a lot of the people, and they really make a fuss of us when we go back because we've been gone 12 years. We have an annual holiday in Bournemouth with the Friendship Club movement. 150 people take over the whole of the ambassadors in Bournemouth, and it's a wonderful holiday because everything is laid on. The coach picks us up across the road and takes us to the hotel, and that suits me fine. We don't travel abroad anymore. We went many, many times to Israel.
You never wanted to settle in?
No. My family's here, my life is here. I don't want to go. I don't want to go and live in Bushy or Stanmore or Edgware. I'm happy in Southgate. It's a Jewish area. I mean, if you go shopping, we've got an enormous Asda here. You passed it. I think 6 years it's been there. You say, I'm going to Asda, I'll be back in half an hour, but you're not because you meet so many people that you know. See, this is the sort of life. We live a social life. There are times when we want to be on our own. There are times when I want to be on my own. My daughter-in-law is a lovely girl, and she said, Mum, you need space. And it's true. True, everybody needs space. I like to go shopping on my own. I don't want... My husband, bless him, he's lovely. But as soon as we get into Asda, have you got much to buy? And why are you buying? And it doesn't say why are you buying. What are you looking for now? I like to browse, So I say to you, you don't want to go. I'll get the car out the garage. I'll be back in half an hour. But I'm not. Because I meet people.
Where's your mother buried?
My mother's buried at Bushy.
Do you visit her grave?
Oh yes, my brother-in-law's buried at Bushy. And that's where we will be because my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, is also at Bushy. Otherwise they'd send us to Waltham Abbey. And I don't like the thought of anybody motoring on the M25 to go and visit me. No, Bushy.
And you visit your mother's grave?
Oh yes. We go together as a family.
How often?
Well, we always go before Rosh Hashanah.
New Year?
Yes. We go together. If we ever are at Bushy for a funeral or stone setting, we make it our business to visit the graves. I must say, we don't go regularly.
But your father, you don't know?
He was buried somewhere, I don't know. We were notified when he died, and I really don't know. No.
What do you think when you look back on those early years in East End?
Lovely. We had no money in our pockets, but we children had a wonderful life, but our parents had it very hard. My mother used to have to black the stove every Friday morning and up and down the 3 flights of stairs. She had it very hard. Never complained, never.
Well, Vicki, I want to say thank you very much.
You're very well. What will you want me to say next time you come?